She's my pal. I'm her pal. My name's Tommy D, and she is Val. Welcome to the Professionals and Animal Lovers Show. Joann Cave is with us, senior humane volunteer leader from, I'm just going to use the acronym because I already used a lot of words, HSUS, the Humane Society of the United States of America. Joann Cave, Valerie Heffron. What up? What's going on, ladies? How are you today?
Hey, thank you so much for having me back.
Oh my God, so excited.
I was one of your very first guests way back when, and man, you guys, you're hitting it out of the park.
You're in for life.
I love the show. You're doing such a phenomenal thing with it.
Oh, man.
Thank you. And you, she's like our biggest fan. I just want to let you know. I was on the phone with her the other day, and really quickly, she was like, I asked her, I was like, oh, did you happen to catch the last one? Because it was so hard. It was a hard one, but it was so important, right? And she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I haven't listened yet. And I'm like, no, don't apologize. You're like our biggest fan. You don't understand.
It was a big deal. I mean, I'll tell you something. That particular show that Valerie's talking about called, we met with a gentleman from an organization called Horse Racing Wrongs. And I mean, I'll tell you, Val, I told you this the other day, my dad had reached out to me and I wasn't even sure if I was going to or how I was going to explain to him, hey, Dad, this horse racing thing, we got to talk about it. And he sent me a note and he's like, it's like, I heard the show and I don't even realize how people know to listen in. shows how much I'm paying attention. But I was like, I no other people, but I didn't think my old man would like realize like I got to go to Facebook and watch the show and the whole thing. And he was taken by it because he's a horse lover. And I mean, we're going to just talk about, look, we're talking about, where's my cup? No big deal. Just changing the world. That's what we're doing. No big deal. We're just making the world a better place. Joann, we know you're making the world a better place. If it wasn't for the community that we have around us and the community that we have built and are continuing to build, well, then it's just Valerie and I talking to each other, which is fun in its own right. But but there are so many special people that we're connecting with. So Val, I know you wanted to take it away, some things updates, some legislation and things like that. Let's start.
Yes. Okay. So once again, are you going to do the breaking news thing or we're good?
Oh, I wasn't prepared to do.
Okay, good. So dun. Breaking news. The anti-puppy mill bill in the state of New York has been finally called to the governor's desk, which is the last step before it would become law. But here's where it gets tricky. And we wanted to explain this to you because there's a couple of variables and it's not as clean and simple as that sounds. So basically, of course, my cousin's calling me right now. Vic, I'll call you back. So we worked very hard. The bill has passed both houses, and I want, I believe, Tommy to start with what happens next. Is that the title of what you're covering?
I will tell you in a second because we've really prepared for this. I got
very extensively.
I got this 6 minutes ago. What happens next? The committee may amend the bill to satisfy concerns of committee members, leave it as is, or refer it to another committee for further deliberation. The bill may be reported to the full Senate chamber for consideration if a majority share of the committee members support it. If a bill has not been addressed by the committee by the end of the 2-year legislative term, the bill is said to have died in committee, which is not something we want.
Yeah, but it's not in committee.
Right. No, so we took care of that. Right.
Okay.
This is the part I'm just explaining the legislative process so people understand. This bill, now that it's been called to the governor's desk, Joann, what happens? And is it, let's talk about the 10-day window versus the 30-day window. Go ahead.
So to my understanding, this is a 10-day window. I hope it is, because the latter is going to be a very long and tedious process, considering that every one of us that worked so hard on getting this legislation passed is basically on pins and needles. And we're always putting the fire alarm out there, call the governor, call the governor, call the governor. But from this point, the bill has been called, so it has headed to the governor's desk. And now the governor has 10 days, not including Sundays, excuse me, I'm going to put my reading glasses on, to approve, which would be to sign, or reject, which was veto the bill and pass by both houses. If she signs it, it becomes law. And if she vetoes it, it does not. it will take a year in order for the law to go into effect. But if she vetoes it, the bill dies, and it would have to be reintroduced and start all over again from square one. If she fails to sign or veto the bill within the 10-day period, it will automatically become a law. Now, that is with the understanding that the legislature is currently in session and that she has 10 days.
It is in session right now?
Well, I'm being told that we are in session. So technically in session. So that's what I'm gonna hope for, because otherwise it's the latter, which is the 30-day window.
Yeah, so why don't we text our friend Tommy?
Yeah, I was gonna text a couple people, actually. I'm trying to look this up myself, but I will text some folks that I have to find out. Please continue.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just cover the 30 days really quickly in case we are not in session, right? And it's amazing because I feel like we learned this like a long time ago in school and you kind of forget it, but then every once in a while, you know, you'll hear something and it'll trigger you and you're like, I remember that term, you know what I mean? Anyway, so we're all learning together. If a bill is delivered to the governor when the legislature is out of session, typically from late June until early January, the rules are a bit different. At such times, the governor has 30 days, including Sundays, in which to make a decision. This is an important difference. Failure to act has the same effect as a veto. Informally, this failure to act is often referred to as a pocket veto. I remember learning pocket veto in school, right? Like high school or something?
I don't remember that.
No. So that is an important distinction. The key here is we need to find out if they're technically in session or not. But this is also great information. What can I do? You can reach out to Governor Kathy Hochul's office. We will post a link. The phone number is 518-474-8390. Hit option 3. You can call now. You can call after hours. You can call at 3 o'clock in the morning. You can call on your way if you're commuting somewhere to work. It doesn't have to be between the hours of 9 to 5. And you can leave a message in support of this bill. And additionally, all members of the Senate welcome legislative feedback from constituents at nysenate.gov. Now, I'm going to post this link too, because there's a link that they have that you can click support and fill in your name and it will count, you know, it'll show the constituents' support of this bill. All right.
Also, just want to say, the phone calls, I know they take a few minutes, especially the governor's line, because there's quite a few prompts to get through. And honestly, in the times that I've called, I've languished on hold and nobody ever comes live to the phone, but then I have gotten through to a person. So I usually always inevitably hang up and call back and opt to leave a message, but I start with trying to get a live person. But just call, because at this point, she needs to hear from everybody that cares about this issue.
This just in. So there's a special session next week, and I found this online while I was Googling too. The legislative session is typically January through June, but there will be a special session next week. So the real session again is January through June. Shout out to my buddy Greg. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, so but with a special session, I wonder if that means, you know, I mean, we need the governor. The governor's working, right? So that was really more up in the air as to, you know, were the legislators there, Val, right?
You know, it's confusing. I don't have a really clear-cut answer. I asked the woman when I got through to 2 humans last week when I was calling at the governor's office. So the one I was transferred to, the bill status department, I was asking her at what point in time, if she calls, I use the example, if she calls for the bill on December 31st, does that trigger the 30-day clock, or what triggers the 30-day ticker? And she really couldn't answer. She wouldn't give me an answer. So I don't really have a clear-cut answer, but I do know this. You know, this has been in the works for years and years and years. There's been a lot of, you know, everything you can imagine, from protests to petitions to online call nights and everything else. And this is the final stretch, okay? The finish line is in sight, and just keep calling. That's it. We can't give up now. We can't, you know, take our foot off the gas pedal.
All right, but when we talk about that, when we talk final stretch and we talk finish line, we're talking about track and field. Okay, we're talking about people in high school. We are not talking about horse racing, Val, because we just did a show last week. Trying to get horse racing. Come on, man. What are we doing here?
Good point. Yes, the marathon runners. That's what we are. That is what we are. All right. So now let's get to our fabulous guest, as well as this topic, which she is very well versed in. And I'm proud to say that many moons ago, I'm gonna guess 7 or 8 years ago, roughly, her and I did an event together promoting Meatless Monday. The topic we're covering is actually reduce, refine, replace as it pertains to your diet and consumption. And but you know, I want to say it was an excellent event where all the food that was passed around at Que Pacho was meatless. And everybody really enjoyed the educational component of it, and we're surprised at how good the food can be. You know, that was a great event. We brought in that chef.
Great event.
Yeah,
that event was spectacular. I would love to do something like that again.
yeah.
But one of the subjects that I've embraced as a senior humane policy volunteer leader with HSUS is the humane diet. And there are 3 tenets of the humane diet. It's reduce, refine, replace. So by reduce, refine, replace, there's things that everybody can do. So I always say every change, any change is a good change. It's a win-win. If you start to connect the dots and you take, when you say the words, I love animals, but you actually make the connection that every choice that you make in life, whether it's the food you eat, whether it's the clothes you buy, whether it's the entertainment choices that you seek, they all, mostly every decision can have an effect upon animals, whether you realize it or not. So reduce, refine, replace encompasses all those life decisions. And any small change, so reducing your consumption of animal products, there as a whole, every change that you make to get away from consuming animal products is a good change, because the more and more people that we can reach and actually flip that switch and get them thinking, that means that they're going to start wanting to make those humane choices. And I know that you're accomplishing that with this podcast, because Tommy, for instance, yourself, you were never thinking about these things before you got involved in animal advocacy. And now that you know, you are making these conscious changes to be eat a more humane diet and not support things that harm animals. And so everybody can reduce their consumption. It's very easy to do that. And especially in today's market, because we're saturated really with products. If you go to, you don't have to go seek out like a special supermarket anymore. You can find vegan products in every supermarket. One of my favorites is Trader Joe's. I have to say they have a ton of vegan, a really interesting, great vegan alternatives for almost every single product that you would think of. But you can eat in a restaurant. It's no longer where you go out to eat and you're the vegan that has to eat a salad, tomato salad. That every restaurant now has jumped on the trend, because it was a huge dining trend of vegan people. Veganism was really driving the train, as far as if you have a group of friends that are going out, and because veganism has, and eating more mindfully, and especially plant-based diets, they've really gained traction the last couple of years. If somebody's going out and there's one person in the group that is going to want to eat plant-based, well, everybody's going to go to a restaurant where they know their friend can enjoy a good meal. So even steakhouses have vegan options on the menu now. So
let me just dive in for 1 second. Great example. 15 or so years ago, I'm trying to remember exactly how long. I mean, it must have been longer than that, 16, 17 years ago, whatever. I had a friend in Long Beach. She was probably the first vegan I knew, or at least the first person who I was friends with that I knew was vegan. Didn't even really understand it, just knew that that's what she was. And her friends and I, we decided to throw her like a surprise party and all of that. And it was really difficult because I was in charge of the cake, and it was really not easy to find a vegan birthday cake. And I ended up buying it. It was a crappy cake, I got to be honest. But then another time,
You can't just get a carrot cake. That doesn't do it.
No, the icing,
Well,
no.
Yeah, not unless it's vegan.
No, not right. So anyway, we also, she wanted to kind of expose some of her friends to her diet and all of that. Now I want to let you guys know, anyone who ever has lived in Long Beach, New York knows that people who live in Long Beach are pretty famous for never leaving Long Beach. Like they don't cross the bridge. It's just like the way of life, right? We had to go to freaking Bayshore to go to dinner with her because
Wow.
that was the vegan restaurant. That was the
Wow.
only vegan restaurant that she knew at
15
that time.
15 years ago.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad even, I'll say 10 years ago. Really,
Yeah.
it's really picked up pace in I would say the last 5 years at least, where and now it's just like I said, it's really easy to find vegan options and dining, and certainly in the supermarkets. And now if and when you make that decision, for me it was a process. The more I became involved in animal advocacy was where I learned about factory farming. So before I knew what those words were, I would say I love animals and then proceed to eat most animals. So I didn't make the connection until I was actually on the back of a bus on my way to Albany for the very first time to lobby. And I didn't have an official position with HSUS. The volunteer program was just brandly new, getting off the ground. I was just going up to Albany as an animal advocate. I volunteered in a shelter, and I said, I would love to go up there and see what this is all about and speak on behalf of animals. And somebody handed me a Farm Sanctuary magazine, and I saw images for the first time that I could not get out of my head, and they haunted me. And that was the first time I made the connection between what I was consuming and the harm that I was inflicting upon other animals. Because of course I would always claim to love animals, never making the connection. Once I made the connection, I started to make changes in my life. And I want to say one of the greatest compliments that I received was from a shelter director here on Long Island that said, prior to meeting you, I knew in my head that I had made that connection because I'm saving dogs and cats, but yet there's other animals that I'm consuming, right? So before you and I met and we had these conversations, I never felt like it was going to be enough if I just made changes. Like I always felt like I had to be perfect. And I said, that was one of the great, he said, you made it feel like it was okay for me to not be perfect. Like there's a gray area, like, and it's a process. I want to encourage everybody listening to make changes and don't feel like you're a failure or you're going to be judged if you're not perfect, because it's a journey for everybody. It's just,
well, you will be, but it shouldn't matter. Right.
For me, it's a win-win if you start, the minute that you start to think about it, the minute that you actually start to think about the choices you make, that's a win for me, because I just want people to open up their consciousness, their minds, and relate that all of their choices are going to have a cause and effect. And many animals suffer terribly because of not just in the food industry of what we consume and eat, but obviously also the fashion choices that we make and the entertainment choices that we make. So let me ask you this question, and as far as the next R, because we talked about reducing, but refining. Now, if you were going to start making changes in your diet, what would be the first thing that you would say that most people jump to say, I'm going to cut this particular thing out right away?
Red meat.
Exactly. That's like the number one thing. And honestly, that was the number one thing that I stopped. But you know what? The greater the animals, the chickens
Yeah.
and your turkey, all the fowl, they have no protections under the Animal Welfare Act, zero protections, unlike the cattle and beef industry, where there are certain animal welfare laws that regulate, but the animals, the poultry industry is one of the worst, where the most harm occurs. So if you were going to start to think about reducing animal products, actually you would be affecting many more because of the sheer amount of chickens that are slaughtered every year, chickens, turkeys. So that's just a point, something to think about. Refining, so refining your choices as far as what kind of changes that you're going to make. Another one would be looking for certain words like cage free, crate free, USDA organically produced, free range, versus if you're going to buy, if somebody's going to buy eggs and you're going to buy them in Costco, which is like the cheap, easy supplier of eggs, Costco buys their eggs from one of the, from the worst of the worst, because these places are living hellholes for the chickens that live within the factory CAFOs, the factory farm. It's just a hell on earth for them. So there's certain buzzwords, there's certain, you could, if you're gonna make changes, you can refine your changes and kind of look for certain ways that you could still, you'd better benefit animals that are raised for food consumption. Because as much as I'd like you I'd like to say, just stop eating all animal products, I just also don't want to, because that loses people. Some people can make that choice, like somebody that smokes cigarettes and just wakes up one day and cold turkey just quits all the cigarettes, but that doesn't happen for everybody. So I always want to embrace and just encourage people to make these changes, to think about their choices, and to start to live a more humane life.
And I just want to thank you for that. I think I've said this before, but guess who's got to say hi? Hi, everybody. So I want to thank you for that, because the truth is, I am one of those people who has been trying to make these like gradual choices. And anyone who knows me will tell you that if I feel like someone is attacking or you know, trying to use guilt, like make you feel like a bad person or whatever, put someone down because it's like, well, you're not doing enough. You know, I'm the first person to then kind of go the opposite direction. You know what I mean? Like, I don't fare well with ultimatums. And I certainly don't believe, like, I think of Lisa Yeager, a prior guest, right? She is a fantastic animal wildlife rescuer who devotes a lot of her time, pretty much every day, saving hurt animals, animals that are displaced, whatever. And she's not vegan. There's no one in the world that's going to convince me that she's a bad person. You know what I mean? And I get very turned off when people try to say like, oh, well, you know, I think the example that was online was something extreme, like, oh, well, you know, if someone was a rapist, you know, but you would overlook that because they're not a murderer. And I'm like, yeah, I don't subscribe to that school of thought. So I just want to thank you, Joann, because you do make it easier to want to learn more and to do better. So that's my style.
Thank you. And a shout out to Lisa, because she is amazing. I'm in awe of her.
Yeah, right. I know. And I wanted to mention one thing about the refine. Actually, I'm not sure. I don't know if this falls under refined, but I just wanted to remind you to please mention that app that you were telling me about.
Oh, yeah, that comes later. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Replace is replacing with replacing the products that you know and love with the vegan version. So your mayonnaise, your butter, your milk, there's a vegan or vegetarian versions of just about every single product
Mhm.
that you know and love. And honestly, there are amazing choices out there now. I love preparing food and serving it and then telling people that it's vegan, because
Right.
that just is so much fun for me, because
Yeah.
if you say it beforehand, already sometimes somebody just already is going to say in their mind, oh, it's going to be different, it's not going to taste the same. So
it's gonna suck. Let's be honest. They're gonna think it's gonna suck. And I want to just say this really quickly, because you mentioned one of my favorite things that I found. One of my favorite products is there's this vegan butter, plant-based butter, Country Crock.
Veganos?
No, we love the Country Crock. I want to say this: we like it better than butter. And this is such an important point. I didn't rehearse this, but let me try to make this point quickly. I cook a lot, okay? And 9 times out of 10, I'm following a recipe, okay? And I realized that by using just that one thing, the vegan butter, because we genuinely love it more than regular butter, I'm this close to actually veganizing a lot of recipes. Butter is in a lot of things, okay? And it kind of blew my mind because, example, I was making potato leek soup the other day, 2 days ago. And here I am melting the vegan butter, right? And the flour. And then it, the recipe says you can use chicken stock or veggie stock. And I make my own veggie stock, whatever, you can't tell. And I was like, holy crap, I just veganized this recipe, kind of not even trying. That was not my goal. And it was that easy, you know?
Yeah.
And there's other things too. I'll save my favorite one for later, but I'm just saying it's not as overwhelming to convert something either.
Right, true. Now, it is under this topic though, replacing. So this is that leaping bunny. The leaping
Yay.
bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, you can download this app. Can you see this so clearly?
Yeah, leapingbunny.org.
Leap Bunny, yes, you can download the app right on your phone, and it's a really helpful tool for if you're out in the store, you can just scan a barcode and it automatically going to tell you. But there's also their own, this is their symbol. So if you see this symbol on personal products, that you can feel very safe and secure in the fact that it was a cruelty-free product and it was not tested on animals in laboratories. So it's cruelty-free, and that's another something that you can do. Do you have any questions for me?
You know, I do. I always do, right? So I guess what I was wondering is, because it's something that a lot of people don't think of when, in terms of when they're making their decisions, other things that are not as obvious, like I'm assuming repurposing or recycling, upcycling, things like that also have a place in this conversation, because you know, whenever there's industry, like let's say there's a manufacturing plant that's being erected or whatever, you know, they're probably knocking down a lot of trees, which is a lot of ecosystems, which is a lot of animals, you know what I mean? So do you have any tips for like that kind of stuff, like you know, on that side of it, or is there anything that you want to bring to light?
What you just made me think of with that was when it comes to, let's say, fur and leather, right? Fashion, pocketbooks, things like that. I personally will not purchase any new products that in my past life, I had those things. Now I buy the alternatives versions. I buy faux leather, I buy faux fur. And I just want to make that point, especially now because it's the holidays. Really, a lot of fur that's used as trim comes from China, because a lot of our products are produced in China. And I hate to break it to you, but a lot of those fur trims are actually companion animal, dog and cat. So be really, really,
Wow.
you don't need that little furry little thing that's hanging off your pocketbook. Animals suffer terribly for it. So again, reduce, refine, replace. It's not a necessity. But honestly, all of the major fashion houses have actually made commitments to go fur free. So it's no longer in the minority. It's actually has become to the point where it is frowned upon. Back in the day when I was in my 20s and I went to FIT, fur was a status symbol, and it was just unimaginable to even think that one day it would become such a where people, but the more people become aware of how animals in certain industries are treated, it only takes that shining a bright light on it. This is another point that I often make. You know how you're sitting in the living room or wherever it is you watch TV, but those late night commercials that come on for the donations to ASPCA, got the Sarah McLachlan song starts, and you got all the images, and before you know it, you're bawling your eyes out, and you're looking at the dogs and the cats, and you want to save them all. But I always say, imagine that the commercial was not for the dogs and cats, but imagine that it was for the pigs that are in the gestation crates that they can't move, and the veal calves that are in those crates as well, and they can't move, and the chickens stacked on top of one another, stacks and stacks in these dark, disgusting garage. They're like the size of football fields, these sheds, and they just literally eat, and the ones that are on the bottom are pooped upon. I mean, it's just literally like a hell on earth. And imagine those images were shown. I really feel that people would be horrified, number one, and at the very least they would demand that animals raised for consumption cannot be raised in these inhumane conditions, because no matter what, they're living, breathing, feeling individuals, and no living thing should be subjected to that kind of treatment. And so that's one of the really big issues. That's a legislation as well. It's trying to eliminate the extreme confinement of animals, that it's inhumane. Imagine just living your life in a cage that's so you can't even turn your body around.
No, of course we can't. And I don't even think we could do it for a day, to be honest with you. I also want to make this point because I think it's timely. And also I'm a little bit of a weirdo, shocker, anyone who's listening right now, but I kind of like make up these micro challenges for myself, right? And I mean, they vary greatly. Like one day I decided I was just going to try to pretend I was a lefty and use my left just to see how it would go. And it was terrible. But anyway, I challenged myself. I like to get the bang for the buck, right? I like to stretch the dollar. It's just in my nature. I don't know if it's because I grew up in a basement apartment. I have no idea, but whatever it is, like I'm the one squeezing the toothpaste out of the tube and all that, right? So this, I look at saving money kind of like as a puzzle, but this goes hand in hand with what we're talking about, because one of the things that I've realized is when you incorporate more vegetables into your diet, you're saving money right there, okay? Especially if you're growing your own, even herbs, right? But also, you would be shocked at like what you can replace stuff with. Okay, example. I told you I make my own veggie stock. Okay, there's no reason to buy vegetable stock. Literally all I do is I take a freezer bag, and every time I'm cooking, the piece of the onion that you don't use, if you have a carrot that's turning a little not so firm in your refrigerator, you throw celery in, if you have fennel, I take the stalks, throw that in the bag. When the bag is full, you dump it into a pot, add water, boom, you've got veggie stock, a couple of quarts, okay? Now, mind you, Yeah, it's so easy. I throw in a handful of peppercorns, you know, and then boom, you've got that is vegetable stock. Okay. So now, mind you, I started getting, because I'm crazy, I started getting more specific, and I decided I'm going to do a bag of just onions. I'm going to make an onion stock. I did this recently with mushrooms. So, oh, it took me 6 months. Again, I'm crazy. But like every time I cut up a mushroom and you pull the stem out, I threw that in the bag. Now, what happened? Now I have this stock bag.
You have a big freezer.
I have 2 freezers. All right, I know. But here's the thing. Then I started looking into, oh, well, now I've got mushroom stock, right? I have like 8 quarts. Now I'm curious. I go online and I see that 1 quart of mushroom stock is about $5. You hardly ever even see it in the stores. You got to really hunt it down. So that right there is about, I just made $40 with stuff that normally people would throw out. And what I found out is that mushroom stock is actually a very popular substitute for beef stock. Imagine that, because mushrooms in general are very hearty. They're very meaty when you're eating it, right? And so now my mind just blew up, because I'm like, holy moly, I can make French onion soup without hurting a cow. It's unheard of.
Well, you know, that's one of the things that for anybody listening that wants to try to reduce your animal consumption with, you know, say, okay, I'm gonna eat a plant-based diet this many days a week, and then I'll, you know, I just want to encourage everybody to make those changes, and make those substitutions. And once you start thinking about it, you'll see it's not this mountain that is so overwhelming. And honestly, the more people that make these changes, the more animals that will be saved, because there's so many things on the horizon, and there's all this talk about the future of meat, because we just don't have enough land, resources to farmed animals consume the greatest amount of grain. So basically, if the world was made up of vegetarians, nobody would be hungry. We would have no shortage of food. The sheer amount of grain that is grown to feed cattle dwarfs the amount that's actually goes to growing grain to feed humans. So that's something, as population continues to grow, that's why you have people like Bill Gates that are investing all like in the future of products, because we can't sustain the population growth if we're going to just do agriculture, farmed animals. So that's all the introduction of these mock meats that have made it into the market that are like exploding. I'm not a big proponent to say, yeah, eat that on a daily basis, because honestly, it's not exact. If I look at a label and like most of the words you've never heard of, it's not exactly telling me. It's probably not like like very high up on the health meter, but once in a while, hey, I love an Impossible Burger, and I love serving those to my family and friends at a barbecue, because they cannot tell the difference between an Impossible Burger and a burger. And newsflash, you shouldn't be eating hamburgers on a regular basis anyway, because they're not healthy. So regardless of whether you're going to eat a beef burger or a Impossible Burger, to me, that's like hand in hand. Like, just make the swap, because you won't tell the difference.
One of the things I really want to commend you for too, Joe, and I loved it. In fact, I was going to do it myself. I think I told you this, but a few years ago, 5, 6 years ago, wow, time really flies. Maybe 7 years ago. Anyway, Joann hosted at her house a vegan barbecue, right? I remember it was no killing, just grilling, right?
No killing, just grilling. Yeah.
It's so cute. I love it. I love the play words.
I said several of those.
Yeah, I went to
not
2.
Since COVID, but hopefully maybe this year.
But see, so I guess even if you're not vegetarian or vegan, right? Even if you just want to like have a little fun and experiment, you know, hosting something like that, it's, first of all, it's super interesting. And I think it was like a potluck style, although I know Rich was on the grill like crazy that day, but that was the first time I tried a Beyond Burger and I was blown away. I mean, like you said, I knew walking in it was a vegan party. I don't remember what I made, but something. I think it was butternut. I think I made-
Enchiladas, I think.
that's it. I made veggie enchiladas. Thank you. And then, but like, I'm sitting there going, you know, I've had other veggie burgers and vegan burgers and I didn't like them, you know? So the expectation was like, all right, well, this is going to suck, but the food's going to suck, but the people are great. So we're going, right? But
Did you, go ahead.
I was wrong. I was totally wrong. I love the Beyond Burgers. There was a ton of other food. The desserts, the ice cream was ridiculously good.
Yeah,
Wait,
Haagen-Dazs.
The people sucked.
The people were great.
Oh,
Haagen-Dazs dairy free is incredible. You can't even tell the
Yeah.
difference. It's
Yeah.
amazing. That's one of my like indulgences every so often. But the jackfruit tacos, I have to say,
Yes.
when I serve those and make it like a slider, it's reminiscent of either shredded beef or pulled pork with the barbecue sauce. And the little people go nuts over them, and they can't believe that it's the jackfruit. Well, what the hell is a jackfruit?
Yeah.
they had that when we did our lunch. I think they had jackfruit that day with the
Yes.
was that on the is that on the ranch?
They did have jackfruit, and it was delicious.
She took whatever was left.
Oh, you did.
I over ordered. I definitely over ordered for
There's a
that.
lot
But
of food that day. Let me
served-
jump in here for a sec. I got to get in here because I got to go back to something you talked about. I'm going to share my screen real quick because something you talked about, Joanne. It's funny. This is a company that I got to see their space up in the Bronx, and it's called KD New York, and the designer is David Lee. And it's funny about being me.
I want some of that.
yeah, that looks really comfortable.
So I'll go
That's
back. So it's vegetable cashmere. I actually definitely want that baggy drawstring pants and the hoodie. But I'll tell you, I sometimes in my life I get invited to places and I don't really know why I'm going or what the outcome's going to be. But I go anyway. It happens to me a lot, in fact. So this gentleman, David Lee, who's a designer, has had a successful career in designing for many, many years, 40 years, I believe. He was a dancer before that. And they make vegan cashmere, vegetable cashmere in the Bronx. In the Bronx.
I love seeing things like that.
You gotta get them on the show. It's probably what has to happen here.
Yes, and I'm just curious though, like, so what is cashmere traditionally made out of?
Goat's fur. The cashmere goat.
Really?
Yeah. And you know, like just to give you an example, again, with the holidays, ugh. Well, they shave the sheep. No, the sheep's okay. They're shaving the sheep. No, the sheep's not okay. You should see that the horrendous that these goats are bleeding. The sheep, it's terrible. It's very inhumane, the shearing of the sheep. So you can't have a good conscience buying an UGG, that's for sure.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Just like down, same thing.
They shave them down too far.
They're shaving the fur and then they just regrow it and they shave it and it's like this vicious cycle. And literally the pictures of the sheep they're screaming in agony while this is happening to them. This is not like happy times.
Oh my God.
And the ducks.
I didn't know this. I did not know that.
Yeah, and the ducks that you're down.
That I knew.
Ducks are plucked. You then they're naked. They're fur and they're bleeding as well. It's pretty horrific. Animals really suffer.
People work at these places. That's the part that really blows my mind because I'm sitting there going, you know what?
Val, a lot of the manufacturing takes place in third world countries also, where people don't have a choice. Like they take the work that they're given, and a lot of people that work in slaughterhouses, from what I've read, a lot of them suffer terribly from terrible because it's just constant being exposed to this constant suffering and death. It's not something that doesn't affect you.
That I remember watching that on one of the documentaries actually that you did a filming for. I don't remember which one, but I look at it like, okay, so the other night Puffy was hanging out with me and I found a little knot on her underside. So I have, pet scissors, whatever. And I was attempting to cut it out. And long story short, I must have gotten a little too close to the skin or whatever, but she went, meow. I mean, she's not a drama queen. She did a little meow and then she just kind of walked away like, screw you, lady. And, I felt horrible. I was like crying, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? Like so
No,
imagine being the person that these animals are suffering in your hands.
Right. I personally could not imagine inflicting pain upon any living thing. Honestly, I mean, I don't even squish spiders anymore. Like I literally.
Yeah, I know.
I have not that I want to touch them, but I have a paper plate and a little cup, and I keep one in the basement. I keep one in the garage. I keep one like readily, and just in case, I scoop it up. I put the cup over and I carry it outside.
Hey, I have a really cool story. Someone that I know who listens to the show, probably because they're on it, had just bought a humane trap because a little gentleman got into their quarters, right? And he reaches out. Why don't you tell the story, Tommy?
I just think, look, it's about evolving. We all evolve because of what comes into our world. And my experience with this show has been just that. It's an evolution. I make different decisions. I look at Instagram a lot and I see these chefs that take a piece of meat and they start cutting it up, or I see that, something that I saw this morning where someone was was killing a pig or cooking a pig in Spain, and it looked like this delicacy, and this man was like so excited about his drawing patrons to his restaurant and on and on. And I something you said earlier, Joann, at the beginning of the show, it's just like I knew nothing about any of this in the beginning when we started this show. And I've just, I try to make better decisions that different than I would have in the past, because why should something have to die? because it made it into our world. We're sort of in their world to begin with. Isn't that really what this is all about? So yeah, so I just think it's about finding ways to be better. Val, you don't even know this, but over the years, back in the day, I used to eat like raw vegetables, and I was like into this whole thing, like going completely raw. Not just vegetarian or vegan, but like raw food. Like it was, and I don't mean sushi. I don't mean raw salmon. I don't mean raw tuna fish. But I think, and I have the books. I looked over there because I probably got a half a dozen, if not 10 books on eating raw food and stuff like that. And I was thinking when you were talking about options being available, and I would say, well, I always see like somebody throws eggplant parm on it as a choice. It's like you can get the filet, you can get the salmon, you can get the eggplant parm, and then you go, but that's not really vegan if there's mozzarella on top, right? But one particular restaurant that I'd gone to in the past, and in fact is a pretty interesting documentary on Netflix. It was called Pure, P-U-R-E, Pure Food and Wine, and it was in New York City. And she ended up getting herself all types of shenanigans and whatnot, the owner of the restaurant. But I'd gone there, and years ago, I mean, this is way before kids, it's got to be 20 years ago. And they had, the zucchini like flowers. And
Yeah,
it was
squash blossoms.
Okay. Yeah, like a yellow flower, orange flower, and they would like stuff them with like cheese, but it was made out of like cashews and stuff like that. So, there's so many different options. There's so many ways to just kind of make a different choice about how you want to do something. And I think that's what this is about, and I'm not, it's challenging because, I sit here thinking and hear you both talking, and you talk about butter, and I watch my own children who love butter. Bread and butter is delicious, right? But it's like it's a situation where we've always been doing something a certain way, but that doesn't make it the right way. It's just
I'm telling you, try the country. Your kids are going to love it. I guarantee you. And you know what we love about the butter too is that it's actually easier to become like spreadable. So like you could take the cube or whatever right out of the refrigerator, pop in some toast, and then it'll spread like right away. I don't know why the difference is, but we
we've been off dairy, and like I shouldn't say that too completely, but I will say this. We haven't had, we drink almond milk. We drank almond milk for years, 20 years. Like my children didn't know milk growing up. Like I remember they were at my mother-in-law's house. I probably told you this, Val. And they said, hey grandma, is this cow's milk? We don't drink cow's milk. And one of them was like 3 years old telling their grandmother that they don't drink cow's milk. So it's kind of a funny situation. I realized how funny it is because I drink almond milk all the time. Like if I'm gonna have cookies and milk, but I put half and half in my coffee, which is like this whole other situation. So I try to
Coconut creamer.
what's that?
Try a coconut creamer.
I'm looking for like a half and half type of thing. Is it coconut that make that
Yeah,
they make?
coconut. If you have a Trader Joe's near you, I buy coconut creamer, and it's delicious, and it's creamy, and it's really good.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
there's a lot of dairy-free, creamy coffee options out there. There definitely are. But I want what you mentioned before about the vegan cheese. Certainly try the butter. There's a lot of brands out there. Experiment. It's just a matter of finding one that you like, but there's certainly a tremendous amount of choices. It's not that there's only a few out there. And I want people to ask at restaurants, when you're out to dinner, ask, hey, you have a vegan, you have a eggplant parmesan on the menu. You got any vegan cheese? Because if people start asking for it, then they know there's a demand for it. If you just if you just order it and you don't bother to ask, then they don't know that people are craving and wanting these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I have to say that again, when you look at these differences, there's so many things that we could all do, right? But I like to highlight an example. So when I used to run networking events in New York, which I guess we're still kind of doing, right, Tommy? But you know, this was never really top of mind. I started making the connection over the years, and my point is this: I went from assembling at Ruth's Chris meetings, steakhouse, and no offense to them, their staff and everything. I mean, I love those people; they're great people. Okay, but now going forward, I don't particularly think I'll be able to run any events unless there are vegan options.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so if you think about that, like, you know, not only are the restaurants changing, but also the patrons are changing. And now you're hard pressed versus even 5 years ago. You cannot call a catering hall that doesn't have vegan options. They don't, they all have it now.
And
So,
also, if you happen to be at an event, and I'm at many, and you look at the menu and it's let's say there's entree choices and you don't see one, just ask for it, because they always have it. It may not actually be on the menu, but they always have a vegan option. Yep. There's one other thing that I did want to talk about, because it segues into something that's happening in Suffolk County. And because I live in Suffolk County, I do want to mention it, because any of your listeners that may be in Suffolk County, it would be important for them to call their legislator on. Entertainment was like the last thing as far as reduce, refine, replace under that umbrella, like replacing your entertainment choices with more humane circuses that don't involve animals. There's a lot of them that come around, especially in Suffolk now, but there's Cirque du Soleil type. You don't have to have animals in a circus in order for it to be entertaining and fun. So that's number one. As an example, horse racing. Don't support the races. Don't go to the track. Don't do that. The zoos also, animals that are kept in captivity. These are not their natural surroundings. They like the Happy the elephant has lived by itself in the Bronx Zoo for decades. It's travesty. It's very sad. Polar bear living in New York. That's not its climate. That these are things that we just, if you stop to think about it, it just, hey, it's not good for the animal. And so why do we have to support that kind of entertainment? Dolphin shows, especially when you go and you travel, if you're on vacation with your family in the Caribbean and you go to a dolphin show, know that you're supporting the dolphin, Taiji dolphin. It happens every year, where the fishermen, they chase down the pods of dolphins, and the Cove, the movie The Cove was about it, where they usher all the and it's heartbreaking, because the pretty the young dolphins and the pretty dolphins get quartered off, and those get sold into captivity, which is slavery basically for the rest of their lives to perform. But they're very connected, very tight family units, and they watch their other family members get killed. The water turns red with their blood, and they actually eat. And it's heavy mercury laden fish meat. I don't know why that they do that. It's not even healthy, but whatever. So in entertainment in Suffolk County, there's a resolution that's been introduced. John D. Leonardo, who we know is a big animal, huge animal. You honored him recently at the P.A.L Awards. He actually worked with legislators to introduce, it's a resolution, it's S 1777. So if you're a Suffolk County resident, please call your Suffolk County legislator and ask them to support S 1777, which will ban traveling wild animal acts in Suffolk County. And just for an example, there's something that we've had come around a few times called the Banana Derby. Somebody thought it would be fun to strap wild monkeys to the backs of domestic dogs, have them run around with little cowboy hats on. The dogs aren't having fun. The monkeys certainly aren't having fun. Their teeth are grinded down to little nubs so they can't bite. And, this isn't entertainment. If you stop to think about it, I think reasonable people realize that it's really not fun.
Yeah, where they do that on Jackass? That sounds like you do that on Jackass. That doesn't sound like that's like a thing. Like people
Ridiculous.
So
Joe,
if we do get this resolution passed in Suffolk County, that will no longer be able to come to town and fairs. And we've been successful in actually getting fairs to not invite the Banana Derby to participate in their firehouses, for instance, because once you just have a conversation and open their eyes up to the cruelties involved, they're like, you know what? I think I'm going to pass on that.
Joe, how do people look up their Suffolk County legislature? And do you want to mention your Facebook group as well?
I do want to mention my groups. I have two on Facebook. One of them is called Suffolk County Animal Advocates. So that is great to become a member. You do not have to live in Suffolk County, but I do try to keep people very informed about events and things that happen pertinent to Suffolk, but also it's just really New York State in general with laws and anything that is, I think, of interest. The other one is Meatless Monday and Beyond, which encompasses today's topic, reduce, refine, replace, where myself and members of the group are always giving helpful tips and products and anything that we find interesting that's out there that's not harming animals.
Yeah. I gotta start posting more to that page, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but while we're on the Meatless Monday thing, I just wanted to mention this. I know you have raised this point before, but here comes a new year. A lot of people are going to work on their goals and their resolutions for the year. What kind of an impact, Joann, do you feel would occur if people, let's just say the entire country incorporated Meatless Mondays into their diet?
I think that would be wonderful. I think that would be huge if everybody listening and the country as a whole, sure, that it is a program, and many schools have actually embraced it, Meatless Monday. And I believe there was something in New York State schools. I don't want to, I remember something passed in New York State public schools where it's more than just a day with meatless now. So that's a huge home run. This time of year also, I want to take a moment to say there's nothing like a handwritten letter. So find out who your representative is. It's so important. You don't have to have a position like I do with an organization. You're a constituent, and all your elected officials want to hear from their constituents. So they work for you. So I suggest writing a letter to your legislators and saying, hey, I'm an animal advocate. And if there's a piece of legislation that you know of that's important to you, put it on their radar. Our legislators, there's literally thousands of bills, thousands. So
right now you're talking about the Suffolk County legislator?
Oh no, I have my local senator, my congressman.
Look at you go. Love it.
I do have my Suffolk County legislator, who else do I have? My assemblyman and my former congressman, to wish him well in his new endeavors.
I picture this coming to New York, probably 5 or 6, let's call it May or June. How about we get like a big fat conference room? Maybe we'll do it at the studio, tied in studio. And
Letter writing.
yes, let's do a letter writing campaign. First of all, I love, you know me, I love handwrite. I write my Christmas cards and all that. I haven't gone digital yet, which it's a blessing and a curse. But imagine if we got that room packed with people who were willing to write a letter to fill in the blank. We could do one for the assembly. Yeah, that would.
Yeah, 100%.
See, this is the stuff that I gets me very excited. Yes.
Old school stands out.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And I'm very old school. I wish I had my date book. It's over there on the other table. I'm still got my paper calendar that I can flip through. So,
hey, speaking of, did either one of you get my Christmas card?
I did. I was just about to tell you. I did.
Thank you.
Hey, okay, good.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't thank you.
one of my sons opens up all those cards, you know, so then I get to see them like after they've been opened because they like to put them up. Yeah, they got like a string that runs across the kitchen. And they like to hang them all up on there.
All right, good. I was worried because
we got it. Actually, mine was addressed to my crew, but then it was all of your people and animals that are with you were signed.
Oh, that I signed. I know. I sign everyone's name.
Yeah,
my hand is out of shape. I get like, it hurts after like 5 cards.
I'm still working on mine.
So anyway, all right. So then, again, new year around the corner, imagine if we all just, if you're already a vegan or vegetarian, obviously you're way ahead of us, but hopefully we gave you some good ideas to also kind of spread the message or engage more of your, your circle and your community. And, look, I'm going to start posting more stuff too, because to me, it's a puzzle and I just have to figure it out,
It's a journey.
It's a journey. Yeah.
It's a journey. And there's always something new to learn. But as long as you keep top of mind, if you keep and you make that connection, that's the most important thing. Make the connection that caring about animals and wanting to lessen their suffering will help you will push you towards making more compassionate and humane choices.
I agree. It's great information, Joe. I love the app. Tommy, do you want to just mention the upcoming event that we're doing and then bring it home?
Yeah, it's not on the website yet, Val, right?
It is. It should be on the website. I was told it was. I didn't check it out.
So then why don't you mention it while I'll pull up our website real quick, see if I can share it.
Okay. So actually, we are putting together a phenomenal lunch. We have a featured speaker, Brian Hackett, who's been a previous guest with us from the Animal League Defense Fund. He's going to be discussing and informing us about upcoming legislation, proposed bills for 2023. And of course, the animals could use your support. In the room will be people from all walks of life, including other business people, professionals, business owners, and animal advocates, people that are, maybe they're retired, maybe there's a college student or two. Really, the only criteria to come to this lunch is to be an animal lover and to care about animals. So we're gonna have a couple of sponsors. We already have secured a commitment from Contour Mortgage. Thank you so much. They're doing great for animals. Yep. And this is all about empowering you as an animal lover so that we can collectively make it a better world.
So you go to P.A.L-show.com, you click on events and you'll see you can just buy a ticket right there. I'm sharing that on Facebook, but if you're just listening, go to P.A.L-show.com to participate in that event. Joann, thanks for being here. Valerie, thanks for being visionary of this whole thing.
Love you guys. Thank you.
The greatness of a nation. All progress can be judged by the way in which its animals are treated. Make it a great night, everybody. We'll see.
Yay, Gandhi.
Yay, Gandhi.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.